Welcome to episode 16 of the Willpower Podcast. This week's guest is Andrea Núñez-Smith. Andrea is a triathlete based out of Austin, Texas, and she recently won first place in the female division of the Captex Austin Triathlon at the Olympic distance. One of the biggest themes of this episode, and I think Andrea's life, is consistency. To highlight that, we recorded this at 8:30 a.m. and she showed up coming off of a 12-mile group run that she had done before. After hearing her and talking with her, I was so fired up that I immediately put on my running shoes and went for a run right afterward. I hope you can take something similar from this. Okay. What got you into triathlons?
So I grew up swimming. I started competitive swimming when I was about 4 years old. So my mom swam for the University of Texas, so it was very big in our family. So I did that very competitively till I was 16, and then from there just kind of got really burnt out. So then started doing some cross country running, and tried a triathlon, and I did okay. I definitely had a camelback on my back and didn't know how to do gears and was on a mountain bike. And so someone's if you try this, you could be good. So then just kind of kept at it. So I was 17 when I started. So yeah, it's kind of the beginning of it all.
Yeah. What do you think, how important is swimming in triathlons, do you think? Is there an order of importance?
I would say it's important, but it's not you don't want to spend your most time doing it. It's definitely, and it depends on what race you're doing, what type of racing. So if you're doing a draft legal race where you're drafting off each other, what they do in the Olympics, it's really important because if you miss your pack, you're not catching up. Long distance and non-draft, you look at some of the people that win a lot, they're some of the men will come off 20th of the swim, but they can catch back up on the bike. So it's important, but I would say it's the lowest on the totem pole of importance of the three.
Yeah. Where do you spend the most of your time training if you're focused for a triathlon?
I would say probably on the bike. I'm a little unconventional where I also think the run's super important because most time it's one on the run, but you have to have a strong bike to be able to do that. So, and the biking just takes the most time. So usually in a training week, the biking will take the largest amount of time for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely, in my experience doing the one triathlon we talked about, that was what I noticed. It was of course, the bike is the longest.
Yep.
And it's the chance to kind of make up the most, for me to make up the most ground that I lost on the swim.
Yep, exactly. Yeah.
Do you typically, so you won the Captex Triathlon, Olympic distance.
Yes.
Did you come out ahead on the swim?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
I was, the first out of the water, and then it was kind of hard because that's what's so hard on the bike. You can't really tell who's a girl and who's a guy with helmets and stuff. And so I had no idea until finally someone on the third lap was hey, you have this much time of a lead. And I was oh, okay, awesome. But yeah, so I was able to come out first on the swim.
Sweet. Did you stay in front then?
Mm-hmm.
The whole time?
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah. So it was nice because it's nice, especially when you have a bigger gap. When you have 30 seconds on someone, it stinks because you never want to be the person getting chased. Like to me, I'd rather be a chaser.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it was nice that day.
Do you find that being in like a chasing position, so say you were in second or third, does that push you harder?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Rather than just being in front.
Yeah. Specifically that day, like I mean, you raced, it was so insanely hot that on the run, I started getting like cold, and I was like, oh, that's really not good. Like if we're getting cold and it's 90 degrees out here. And so I looked at my coach and I was like, how much time do I have between me and second place? So then I could know, okay, do I need to keep pressing super hard or can I relax a little bit? Versus if I was chasing, I would just like, push it harder.
That'd be a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. What other, do you do other distances?
Yeah, so I usually mostly do half Ironmans. So that's kind of what I got into. When I first started, I thought that's all triathlon was just half Ironmans and Ironmans. So I did my first one. I like turned 18 because you have to be 18 to do an Ironman. So I did a half like right away, and then I went to school in Arizona, and they race mostly like Olympics, but they also do some draft legal. And so I got super interested in that, tried that for like 2 years, but it's just such a different sport in its own. So I didn't really love it. And so came back to non-draft. So
yeah. Are all the Ironmans non-draft?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. Yeah. So yeah, which I think is good. Yeah.
Yeah. Do you always have something coming up, or do you ever have off periods?
No, yeah, it changed a lot. When I like growing up my whole life, yeah, you always had races. When I started competing in college, we had our races throughout the year. And then COVID hit, and it was actually like really nice not to have something. I was talking about this with a friend the other day because it's like when you join a group or a team, the first thing someone asks you is like, what are you training for? So you almost feel like obligated to have to be training for something. And during COVID, it was like, well, no one's reason. So like, it was kind of nice not having the pressure to have to train for something. But I think has like having something on the calendar is a great like motivator and gives you purpose behind your training, because then you're just kind of a lot of times out there and you're like, well, I don't actually have to do this workout, like I don't have anything coming up. So I try to like do less race, just like space it out more to like give myself, okay, like recover, relax, okay, now get serious, okay, recover, relax. So instead of so many races.
Yeah. What do you think if you were to do no races? What do you think your life would look like?
It's so crazy because I literally like don't know what, like I love training. I'm a person who like, I enjoy racing, but I love training. Like I just love the lifestyle of it and like the community here and stuff. So I would still want to. I think it would just be that much harder to be like, again, like I don't have to do that swim. I can just not do it, you know? I would have a lot more time on my hands, but yeah, it would definitely be, it'd be different, but I think I'd probably find like other avenues of things to do around it.
Yeah. It is interesting because one of the key components to willpower seems to be like having a purpose or a vision behind what you're doing.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it is interesting to think about what would happen if you took that away.
Yeah.
Like, do you still have the willpower? Do you still have the
to
energy go?
For sure. Like, and I think that was a good testimony of like COVID, because it's like, there was no races. There was no, like, no one knew what the next anything was going to be. And for me, it's like, yeah, racing's like cool, but you can still like see progress over time in training. You know, you can still see that but not even just in training, but like in life, like it's, you know, you can just grow over time without having to have like a benchmark, like test along the way.
Yeah. How do you balance like intrinsic and extrinsic motivation? So I'm imagining like, you know, taking first place in a big race is a pretty good extrinsic motivator, but how do you also balance the internal drive?
Yeah, it's really interesting because like that feeling I think is like of, you know, like winning. It gives you so much, I don't know. So like when I was 17 to, I don't know, 21 or something, 23 years old, I would just like race around Austin, like had that high all the time. Like that was just like what I did. And then kind of went into this period of like, and don't really love this that much. Like started racing a lot more competitive, like got creamed, COVID hit, then my husband had gotten cancer. And so like took a big step back from all of that. And one, like the internal motivation was kind of like, okay, we're doing this for a different reason and more just like, okay, this brings me happiness. So like I like how I feel doing this and everything. But more just like I think internally it's more about like self growth and self worth. Like if I get up and run, no one else needs to know about it. You know, like I don't need the like applaud of everyone else, which is hard. Like when you grow up your whole life and you're always getting applauded by doing well in sport, you're kind of like, well, can I just exist? And like that be okay? Like, and so yeah, I think it's more like finding that like internal like motivation and happiness of just like I do it way more just than to race and do well. Like to have lifestyle, to push myself every day. Like to me it's like it sets up so much more and than just going out and winning a race.
Yeah. Can you tell me more about that? Like, because you mentioned growing up, there was a lot of like validation around like doing well in sports.
Yeah.
Was there a period where that went away, or like what was the process of like going from that to adulthood?
For sure. Yeah. It's like fascinating because for me it was like you know, you do well, your parents are very happy, right? And like I know my parents love me versus if I do well or not, but as a kid you're like, oh no, I did well, like, you know, you get more praise and everything. So I think it was definitely really hard because it's like, okay, well, now you're not getting necessarily the praise from, and especially like in Austin, even though like at the time it was a smaller triathlon community, but it's like you go to these local races and you're winning and you feel so great about yourself. And then you go to the college scene and you're like, oh my God, like this is a completely different ball game. And I think it was a huge wake up call for me. Like it was definitely really tough. I would say like took many years of just trying to like find that inner confidence of like, you know, I don't need sport to be loved or be worthy or be any of that. Like that's a byproduct of it all. But it definitely is a huge learning curve. And I see it so much in like younger people who are coming even out of college and like, you know, trying to separate that worth of winning in their sport to who they are out of that. And I think that one of the biggest identity crisis that people go through because it's like your whole life is that sport and that time. So it's definitely it's challenging, but I think like for me, I went through this whole like hobby phase of like, and I talk a lot about this with like the younger guys on our team, because usually as a triathlete or an athlete, all you do is your sport, like, and work, but mostly your sport. And someone was like, what do you do for fun? Like, what are your hobbies? I was like, I don't know. I don't have any hobbies. Like, and so I think, like trying to find, even if it's small things like that, just, are entertaining to you that aren't like your worth isn't tied to that. You just do it for pure fun. Like, yeah. But it's definitely a tough transition.
Yeah. I struggle with that hobby thing as well. Cause like I've done jujitsu in the past.
Oh, cool.
And then more recently I haven't been training as regularly, but I get this like feeling every time I'm in there where I'm like, I need to be getting better. Like I need to do this as much as possible.
Yeah.
And then I have to be like, wait a second. Like
it's okay just to do it.
I can just do it. And
exactly.
Do it as much as I feel like doing.
Yeah. And that was my, like, a thing for me, because like I am either like driven by money or for like winning, like competitive, like, and I was like, okay, like, I was like, my hobby is going to be building like a side business of this and that. And they're like, no, but that's like competitive and money like oriented. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll garden and sit here and watch something grow. But it's good. Like I think that's important, because like that's truly like a lot more happiness comes from that. So
has that been your hobby?
One of them. My in-laws, they're from Minnesota, and so it's really cool because they have like very seasonal hobbies. So like in the summer they like garden and stuff, but then in the winter like they'll like, there's so many hobbies, I feel like, because in Texas it's just kind of the same weather year round. So you're just kind of like, whatever. So I told them about this hobby thing, and they're like getting me gear for fly fishing, so like trying that. I like have a garden now, like painting, sketching, just like random things that, again, is so weird to me to do something where you're like, okay, I'm not getting paid for this, I'm not trying to get first in this, like I'm just doing it. But it's really like relaxing and like I think good to have, like makes more of a whole being.
Yeah. Like having something that is just like encapsulated in itself. It's like, I'm just doing this right now because I want to do it.
Yeah. It's like when you're a kid. Like, I think that's the funny thing. Like when you're a kid, you just do it because it's fun. Like there's no really like deeper purpose behind it. You're just doing it. And then you get older and you're like, oh no, that's a waste of time. Like, how dare you? But yeah, so it's nice to go back to that.
Yeah, that's a hard one. That's because I struggle to. Yeah, I feel like everything has to have some like long-term value
for sure
to it.
Well, and I think that's kind of like a huge issue of our society. And I think it's like everyone these days is like, go, 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 like push, make more money. You have X amount of time, like go all in, right? Like whatever it takes. And yeah, that's great, but that's not sustainable. Like I've seen so many people like, and usually in triathlon, that's what happens is people who come in their first year, they're so excited. Like they are just like going ham and watching all the videos, buying all the stuff. And then a year later, they're like, I'm so burnt out, I'm done. So it's like, okay, let's like, pace ourselves a little bit. Yeah.
So how do you balance that with like, let's say destructive habits? Because I could, I could enjoy myself scrolling through Instagram all day or like watching YouTube videos.
Yeah.
So how do you do things for fun, but not in a destructive way?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I'll set like time things. Like I'll like, so like right now we're painting like one of our rooms, and like to me that's really fun, like just free painting. But I'm like, okay, at X time we're done. Like we're stopping this. Like we're, because like you give yourself that time, like it's, but then you kind of just like, okay, cut it off. So for me, it's more just like, I guess that's time management, but like just allowing that. But I feel like a lot of times it's more you have to force and cut that time out of your day. It's kind of like reading before you go to bed. Like, it's so much easier to scroll and scroll and scroll. But if you're like, okay, no, I'm going to read for this hour instead of scroll for this hour, like, that's my cutoff. Like, that's my cutout time period of the day. So I think it's just more being like intentional with your day, because it's so easy to let something like that like become destructive. Like, my husband has crazy ADHD, and so he'll literally just like, I'm like, okay, you've sent me 20 reels, like, come on, move on, like, we got to do something now. So like, I think it's setting those like, okay, you have 10 minutes to scroll now, stop. Like, so that's what, I don't know, helps me.
Yeah. I think another thing with like habits is, or with hobbies, is like, if it takes effort to get a reward, then I think it's going to be a more worthwhile. Than something that just gives you immediate rewards. For
sure. Yeah. Yeah. And that's like, I think that's the cool thing that I've learned from his parents of like, you know, like they do a whole process of like, they'll grow the food, then either cook the food and then like sit down and eat the food, or they'll can the food for the winter. Like, it's this whole process, right? And versus our society and our generation is just like, yeah, no, I'll like text HEB and they'll drop it off in my front door, like, which is fine, but you don't get that satisfaction, you know?
You don't put in the energy.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What day-to-day habits do you keep up with, and which ones are like the most valuable to you?
I would say like I try to get up pretty early each day, and like I don't know if it'd be a habit, but like usually I start my day off with a run. Like, to me, that's just like a good way to clear the mind, start the day. Like, for habit wise, I would say like I write down what I have to do that day. Like, I make myself my list, like for work and like everything life wise. And then I don't know, it's nothing like super, like I have my routine, and it's very just kind of like my routine kind of goes throughout the day. I've been trying to like read or listen to an audiobook before bed, and that like gets me way better sleep than scrolling, because I will scroll. And then I've been so on and off about meditation, but that is one thing I've like in the past have been really dedicated to do, like at least once a day. I feel like if a person can make that into a daily kind of everything every day for just 5-10 minutes, like that's super important. But yeah, nothing like, no crazy certain habits, just kind of like, I think more like how my routine is set up. It just, I don't know, it's what I have found to set me up for like success to do.
Right. Okay, let's talk about that like waking up and going for a run. So I've had periods in my life where I do this, where like first thing, do you wake up dreading it first of all? Or is it more of just like a flow into it? Where you're like, this is what I'm going to do?
It ebbs and flows for sure. Like, there are definitely mornings where I just like, I don't want to leave the bed. I want to go back to sleep. And what I have learned over and as I've gotten like older is, one, I'll like kind of listen to my body first off. Like, if I wake up and I just like, I am exhausted, like, and I feel it and everything, I'll be like, okay, I'm going to sleep in and I'm going to push this, like, either if it's a hard workout, I'll push it to tomorrow, or I'll run later, or do whatever later. But it's mostly just like, I think a big part of it's like, okay, I know if I don't get up and get this done, then I'm not setting my day up for success. Like, I know I'm going to be tired, or I'm going to be late, or I'm going to be, there's more repercussions of like, versus if so like, for example, we recently moved out to Kyle. So this morning I'm like, no, I got to get up because like I'll leave my house at 5, there'll be no traffic. But it would have taken me like an hour and a half if I left at 7 to, so it's kind of more just like, okay. But yeah, there's definitely mornings like I'm not like, woohoo, it's time to run. Like, so yeah, I can ebb and flow for sure.
Okay. That's good to hear.
Yeah, no, it's not like I'm excited every morning to go. No.
Yeah. Let's talk about like long cardio. Cause well, first of all, do you do like other types do you do like sprints and like shorter training, high intensity?
So like we'll do like 200s, 300s like on the track. So it's like shorter. Yeah, for sure. I am a terrible sprinter. I have like very little fast twitch muscle. But yeah, like I'll train it sometimes. Not like compared to the long stuff, no. But it's good to like keep those active.
Yeah, so you mentioned like kind of clearing your head. What do you think about like the effects of doing long form cardio?
Like the effects over like lifetime, or
let's say like the mental effects day of.
I think it depends per person. Like and I think it depends the duration, right? So like, I think there's like a peak where like you do get that kind of like, like that runner's high, there's also like another side of it where you're just like, I just feel terrible. Like, if you go run, I don't know, 16 miles, you could feel great. But if you go like 18, like, oh God, you feel terrible the rest of the day. I also think it depends per person on like where they're at. So people, when they're first getting into, endurance, like they're going to get a runner's high at 5-6 miles. I haven't had a runner's high in years. Like, and so it just kind of depends on like, but I think like long duration cardio is, I don't know, I think very good for like, overall health. And also like you learn a lot about yourself doing it. And I think too, if you can like do it with people, makes it way more enjoyable. Like you shouldn't have to just suffer out like an hour and a half on the treadmill by yourself if you hate it, kind of thing. But I do think it's important to like mix it with strength, like to not just always do long-term cardio. Yeah.
That is the runner's high is interesting. I used to when I used to drink, I would occasionally like Sunday morning have that kind of like mental hangover.
Yeah.
Where you just have like a low mood. It's almost like a mild dose of depression just for that morning. And that was always my cure. I would just go for a long run and then feel way better.
Yeah. Just kind of sweat it all out.
Yeah. Exactly. But yeah, I'm trying to get back into a routine of doing long runs. Yeah. Because for a while I was doing like, I would do like one a week of around 10 miles. Lost that. Yeah. Completely stopped.
Yeah. Yeah. I think it's like, and I think it's slowly building it up. Like, and there's so many groups and clubs here that like, to me, it's like when you run with sometimes like people and you're talking, you don't even realize like you've just done that. And it, like, I know they always say like, oh, you gotta be mindful of what your body's doing or anything, but like, okay, over that many period of times, you're just like, yeah, I don't really want to think about it. So I think that can help a lot. Like, yeah, having people to kind of like go with you and build up that mileage.
What's the difference in your mindset in a training run versus a competition?
I would say like if I'm doing like a workout and like if I'm on the track or something, I honestly try to envision the competition. Like if I'm going, like if I have a race coming up, I'm trying to kind of like envision, okay, this is what I could feel like on race day. And kind of just have more like mental cues of like, relax the shoulder. Am I pushing off? Like, I would say it's fairly similar. On race day, I think it's more just knowing like what's going on in the race. Like, okay, what are the positions? Like, more, I think, aware of how I'm feeling. Like, in a workout, I can really just, I mean, you can suffer through, like, if the actual chunk of work is, I don't know, 45 minutes or something versus a 5-hour race, like, you can suffer through 45 minutes. So it's like having a lot more mental, like, battles in a race than in a workout. But I try to keep it fairly similar to try to, like, like if you practice what you race, then in that race you can kind of mimic that.
Right.
But I'd say too, like in a workout, I'm a very, I don't know, I would say I'm more of the least type of a type of like a lot of triathletes are A type. I don't think I'm very like, I like my routine and stuff, but if we miss an interval time or whatever, I don't really care. Like, where in a race, I'm more like, okay, like I want to know where I'm going. I don't want like, there's more like drive behind that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When have you failed in the past, and what did you learn from it?
It's a great question. Man, have I failed? I mean, I failed multiple times, but oh goodness, I don't know if I can think of like one specific like moment, because I try not to like be like, oh, like that was a huge failure, right?
Mhm.
Like terrible human being. I think it's more, if I have failed in the past, it's more just giving up on myself when it's like, no, we could have done better. Like we could have, I think, and from learning from it, it's like, well, I guess, okay. Again, I don't like to call it like a failure, but I think it was like a year and a half ago, I did grandma's marathon and I had poured like everything into breaking 3 hours. Like I was fittest I've ever been, like so ready. Started the race, everything was going great. Like paces were perfect, was way ahead of the time. And then just like a few miles, like got a little rusty, like it just wasn't. And then it just like everything turned around. It was terrible. Like started feeling sick. And I just like stopped at mile 20. I was like, I can't do this anymore. And I like called my husband. I was like, I need you to come pick me up. Like, and for me to do that is like, oh God, like the ultimate, like you do not do that. So to me, that was like a huge failure. And the cool thing is like, I talked to my coach about it, and we were talking a lot about like the nervous system and how when you have like so much expectation and you're running a marathon and all this, like it's just so intense, right? You're breathing hard, like everything's just tight, and you have like such a small amount of room for error that when air comes, the nervous system just like tightens up and freezes and just like just stops. Like, and so like we really talked about creating like he calls a lot about like free play and like a free range, and then also like learning how to calm down your nervous system like in a race. And so from there it was just like, okay, I learned massively, like one, don't go into a race with like, not even like, you can go in with expectations, but like when you pour every single thing into that one thing and one little thing starts to go wrong, it's all going to start going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So don't do that. Like just have like, bigger, more purposeful like objectives versus like a goal kind of thing. So yeah, I would say that's kind of.
Have you been able to use those learnings and techniques?
Yeah. So I ran like another marathon, like 6 months or so later. And I was like, oh God, like I was kind of nervous because I was like, I don't want this to happen again. And at mile like 17, I was like stitching up, like everything was starting to go wrong. And yeah, I like was like, okay, like relax. Like he had to explain it as like, you can think about it either coming from your heart or like coming over your head of just like trickling down of like relaxation throughout your body. And so like I did that, and then it really just like calmed everything down, had a great race. And like I was also just like, I'm not giving up on myself. Like I know, like, and I think, marathons, triathlons are a very good representation of just life. Like there's periods where you're like, oh, I feel great. Like this is going great. 2 seconds later, you're like, oh, I feel absolutely terrible. Like this is the worst thing ever. And it just ebbs and flows. And that's how a lot of times like these long distance events can be. But you just have to like adapt to that, because you're gonna come up again, but you're gonna go down again. So yeah, I've been able to kind of like put that into play.
Yeah, how do you keep yourself going in life and in these races? Like what's behind it? What's driving you?
I think a lot of it comes from just wanting to continue to like grow as a human being. I think the scariest thing in life is just to be stagnant. Like there's so much to do in this world and learn and see and be part of. And so I think for me, it's like, getting up, training, working, all these things, like I've just been able to grow so much as a individual. And like it's changed throughout the years where like I have talent in sport, but I definitely have a lot more hard work than talent. And I think like I'm lucky that I can get up and do this. Like I have the choice to do it, So it drives me just to like be, I don't want to, it's so cliche to like just keep being better, but when you go through these harder times and you experience this stuff, like you're gonna grow regardless. So a lot of it's just like self-growth. I think, yeah, like a lot of it, I don't ever want to be stagnant. I don't ever want to just accept just kind of being there. So it's just kind of that every day. And I think too, like it brings me happiness, and that like if I don't get up and really like my hour of social hour is running with my teammates, because I work from home and like I don't go out. So it's like if I don't have like I last week just like trained everything at home for 4 days. I didn't go talk to anyone. Like so a lot of it's like happiness too. And like meeting other people in the community and stuff. So I think it's just like I know that that's going to bring me happiness. It's going to set up my day. It's going to make me a better employee, a better coach, a better everything, a better wife, like all these things. And so if I decide to just sit there and do nothing, like not that I'm failing all these people, but I'm not showing up for them like to my best self. So yeah, I'd say that's what kind of drives me.
Yeah, something that stood out. So I've been getting a little bit into stoicism.
Oh, cool.
If you heard of it, but the one thing that comes up there is like this idea of being tested, and then also like using difficult, like zooming out almost. It's like recognizing that difficult experiences are where you learn.
Yeah.
And they're where like your character is tested.
For sure.
And so I've been trying to lean into them more in my own life.
Yeah.
Even outside of like physical stuff. Like when something difficult comes up, I'm like, okay,
yeah,
how can I like lean into this and be okay with it and actually be like grateful for it?
Exactly.
As an opportunity.
Yeah. No, that's huge, because that's, I mean, in so many parts of like relationship with communication or with work, and like if you're presented a new challenge and you have no idea how to do it, you know, like, yeah, like leaning into it and figuring it out. That's literally half my job. Like, they think I'm like the best photographer ever, and I'm like, I don't know anything, but I'll go to YouTube. Like, I'll learn it. Like, sure, put me in. So yeah, I think a lot of it. That's awesome.
Yeah. So you mentioned being a good wife. What do you think are the keys to a good relationship?
Yeah. So I would say, and like, this is something I've recently been thinking a lot, but now like hearing a lot about it, is one of like continuing to individually grow, but then also grow together. The other day I was told like there's three reasons, or there's three types of growth. Like, two people either grow apart, and then, or one grows, the other doesn't, or two people grow individually on themselves, but then they're like at the end of the day come together. I think that's huge. I think, you know, like working as a team, like, so my husband Keegan, he uses it a lot of like a symbiotic relationship where like, you know, like we're two individuals that, you know, are growing as individuals, but also together. So I think that's extremely important. I think showing up for the other person and like being there for them, in so many ways, you know, I think like emotionally, physically, like, so right now I'm training for a race and he has like a race after me, but my race is like gonna come first. So he's like, what can I do to set you up for success on this? Like, and the past couple years, like it was more focused on his racing. So it's like, okay, what can we do to set you up for success? So I think really like when we first started dating, it was, I mean, he grew up a very competitive athlete as well. And when you put two really competitive athletes together, it's very like tit for tat. Like, no, I'm getting my workout in. Like, I don't care about you. Where now it's like, how can we help each other both succeed? So I think that's huge. I think, obviously communication. That's like the thing every single person says, and people that you can always work on that. But I think too, just like having fun, like that saying of like, don't ever stop dating your person. We always joke that like you could stick us in a desert with rocks and we would have fun. Like, we literally, if we're bored, like waiting in a waiting room, we'll play like rock, paper, scissors, like just like being kids. I think that's super important. Because life just, like, we recently closed a month ago on a house, and it's like these bills, this mortgage, all this stuff, like life comes at you so fast, and you're like, okay, let's play Uno tonight, you know, like let's just take a pause from this. So yeah, I think that also can just help a lot with it.
Yeah, like that. What is something you are struggling with right now?
So I have I'm gonna do Waco 70.3. And I have not done a half Ironman in a long time, like before COVID. So I think for me, it's like I have a very different outlook of triathlon than I did. Like, I did this race in 2019, and it was like one of my very first, or I raced as a pro. So my outlook on it then was like quite intense and stuff. And I want to more go in and just have a lot of fun with it and like just be proud. And so something I would say I'm struggling with is not letting like it become this, like, oh, like you got to win it. You got to, like a pressurized event. And more just remembering like we're doing this because we enjoy it kind of thing. So yeah, that's something that's like, as it gets closer, I have to keep reminding myself. So yeah.
Yeah. How have you noticed? Does your performance change based on those two attitudes?
Yes. Yeah. I think like I'm so familiar with the mindset of like, you have to be the best. And so I'm familiar with, like, to me, it's way more comfortable almost to go to that space and to be like, hit the workouts, hit the times, hit all these things. And if you don't, like, oh God, like, I don't know what's going to happen, but oh God, something's going to happen. Versus this new space where I'm trying to just like, kind of like how my coach was talking about, like free play of like, okay, if I'm supposed to hit 6:30s, but I'm hitting 6:45, that's okay. Like, we're fine. And so I think it's like having, it's being okay with being in that place, versus like, oh, if I don't hit that 6:30, we're screwed. Like, don't even show up. Like and so, I would say those are kind of like the two different mindsets, or if like how I said, like waking up and you're feeling absolutely dead, your legs are toast, like, okay, let's just not go to the workout and push it later. Younger me could have never done that. Like, that would be a complete fail. So yeah, so trying to like go more into that space.
Was that a difficult transition?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I would say that's where my husband Keegan has come in, like, because it's when you're by yourself and like you're in your own head of like I would literally, we lived in Utah for a few years, and I was like, if I didn't get up before 7, to me, it was like, oh, you missed your, like, I don't know, like you had all these, like, your day's done for, like you missed your window, all this stuff. You'd be like, what are you talking about? Like, we can still go run and still have our whole entire day. And you're like, oh wait, you're right. Like, so when you're by yourself, you kind of have these like false narratives of all these things. And versus when you have like an outside viewpoint, I think too, like a lot of times just like girls can just be very more like, oh God, and kind of thing, where guys are just more chill and like, hey, no, it's not that big of a deal. And you're just like, oh, you're right. So like having that soundboard or that moral compass helps a ton.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point. Have you noticed, so to play the devil's advocate, have you noticed any fallback in your performance from the change in that?
No, I've actually am the strongest I've ever been, which is crazy because like it's, I think because I'm not putting this like, I think there's multiple reasons. I'm not putting this pressure of it, but I'm also like, when I was in my early 20s, like I had a part-time job, but like really a lot of my whole life was triathlon. Like, and you just don't make money unless you're way up there. And so the stress of like, I remember one time, because I was like, okay, I'm just gonna fully do triathlon for like a summer, not do any other jobs. I'm not babysitting. I'm not gonna do all these other like hustles. And I was on the track, and like I had 10 800s or something, and like that was my one thing for the whole day, like I needed to accomplish. And I remember like I was so off my times, and I just stopped and just like started crying. And I was like, this is the only thing I have today to be good at, and I'm failing. And so for me, like, having more in life just is like, okay, if I fail a workout today, well, that's okay, because I can crush something at work, like, or I can, do something else to like save the day. So it's not and then that makes you enjoy it more. And then also I think like just learning your body and learning like, just becoming more like one with your body, happy with like your body and not trying to fight it. I think a lot of times, a lot of people, not even just girls, but just in their 20s, you're just constantly trying to fight yourself. And then once you just kind of like accept it, it's like, oh, okay, we're going to work with you. Like, you're not going to get injured. You're going to keep, like showing up, getting stronger. So yeah, it's hasn't impacted. So that's great.
Yeah. You can have your cake and
exactly.
It's good to hear. It's like,
yeah.
For people who are overly hard on themselves, beat themselves up over stuff, like you can be nice to yourself and still get the results.
Oh, for sure. I think that's when you start to like actually like accept and love and like cherish yourself, things just start working with you. And I think it's hard for everyone, but I think especially girls in their 20s, like it's so hard. And I think when you finally are just kind of like, it's kind of like you lay down your swords and you're like, okay, I'm done fighting. Like, it's like, okay, like, because your body is going to win at the end of the day. Like it will outdo you. But yeah, it kind of just, everything kind of falls into place.
Yeah. What would be your advice to yourself? Early 20s.
I would say, probably to not like, to not push so hard. And I think lean more into self-growth earlier. We train with a lot of people in their young 20s, and all they do is triathlon. They'll have like a small gig here and there. But I tried to really just, be like, hey, like try to get a hobby or try to do something else, try to be more of a whole. I think that's super important. And also figure out how you can sustain this lifestyle. So I think that would be more what I wish I could have done earlier. It's kind of really step into like more of a making money role, so I could not be so stressed out about it. So yeah, that'd probably be the thing I'd tell my younger self.
Cool. What does your dream life look like? And what, if anything, is missing from it today?
I would say I'm gonna dream scenario. See, it's kind of this was like our biggest, hardest thing when we were figuring out where we wanted to live, because we moved everywhere. We were like all over the West Coast. We tried the East Coast. Like, we love the mountains. So like, dream scenario, like to have like some land in Colorado or something. But the hard thing is the community. Like, the community to me in Austin is like no other. So dream scenario, Austin community moves to Colorado. But I would say like like I like to look at like my life is kind of like points, right? So like when I turn 20 years old, I'm about to turn 30. So like I would say when I was younger, I wrote down everything I wanted by 30. And like I'm very much on that trajectory or path or anything. To me, like these past 2 years, like there's really nothing missing. Like I'm in, I would say, like one of the happiest states I've ever kind of been in. Like I'm very happy with my training life, my work life. I guess like I've recently started my own like marketing social media kind of business, and so like dream life that's bigger, but again, that's part of the process. Like it just takes time. So yeah, like everything's kind of, I feel like I pushed for so many years to try to like be at this place and just feel like, oh, okay, I'm here. So right now it's just kind of, yeah, it's all there. So it's
Awesome.
nice.
Well, thank you. I'm
Yeah.
glad we could make this work.
Thank you.
Where can people find out more about you?
Instagram. Yeah. Yeah, Instagram. I'm fairly on it.
Okay. And what's your handle?
Andrea Núñez-Smith. So DreaNunezSmith. That's my whole name minus the AN. So
Perfect.
yeah.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you again. Bye, everybody.